Excuse me. Ugh. Good morning, Melty. What's up, man? How's it going? That website you posted, or was it a website? The animation that you posted the other day in Discord, that looked really good, man. Good to see you, though. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Oblivion. Yes, morning, world. If only the whole world was here in my stream. Good morning, Command Bar. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you. Did you see the two I made? I don't think I saw the two. Did you share that in Discord? I must have missed it. Good morning, Amanian. I'll go back. Maybe I missed it. Let's see. Stream posted. Good deal. Coding. Where did you post it at? I don't know. I can't find it. It's in projects. That makes sense. There's the animation. Ooh, that I did not see that. That's very cool. I love the menus. I love these things right here. They're like folders. Yeah, that's super, super cool, man. What is it for, though? What does it do? I guess I should probably read your message. Scans project folders, add new ones automatically, generate the launch for them. That's cool. Yeah. The interface alone looks like it took a lot of work. That's awesome. That thing was literally so hard to make. TUIs are complicated, aren't they? Indersh, hello. Good to see you. TUIs are super complicated. I've been trying to make one for YouTube and Twitch chat, and it's been surprising at how complicated they are to make. They are not non-trivial things. Although that's how I feel about any project I ever do. I always go into a project thinking, this will be easy. How hard can this be? And then about, I don't know, a day into it, I think, oh, this is way more than I anticipated. Morning, 30. Good morning, Almighty. 30 degrees in Florida today. Ooh, that's cold for you Floridians. I think it's let's see, what is it here? It's been like 3 degrees the last couple days here. Let's see, weather. Kansas City. 18 degrees. It's 18 degrees Fahrenheit right now. But I'm pretty sure yesterday it was like much colder than that. And the day before that it was much colder than that. Well, dude, they really are. I would suggest using Charm and Go. I was too deep before I would get it adapt to that. So I used Bubble Tea, which I think is Charm, right? Or no, Charm is something must be something different. I know it's Charm Bracelet. I think that makes Bubble Tea, but Bubble Tea is what I used to make my go-to, and that was a really nice experience. Let's see. I'm trying to build an OS. Can Rust be used to program it? I'm guessing so. I honestly don't know though. I've never done any operating system type of development. That's way outside my scope of knowledge. But I'm guessing it probably can because I've heard talk that it's used in some Linux kernel development. And I've heard talk that Windows is using Rust some in their OS development. So I would guess it can be. I don't know, honestly. Duckboy Celsius. Hello, 24 degrees here, Celsius. What's Celsius to Fahrenheit? I can't do that conversion in my head. I have to always look it up. 24 C to F. That's 75 Fahrenheit. Oh, that's not cold at all. Not cold at all. I managed to also actually build a proper DLL for StreamerBot, so I'm going to actually be able to make attractive WPF UIs for my systems that launches in StreamerBot. Oh, interesting. So, wait, I guess I don't understand. Are you saying you're going to launch WPF applications from within StreamerBot, or or the other way around? Yeah, Charm Bracelet. Yeah, I've only used their bubble tea product. I think Charm Bracelet has like 4 or 5 different products, but I've only used their bubble tea product. Oblivion times 2 plus 30 or negative 30 divided by 2. I cannot do that math that quick, man. I'm not good at mental math. That is not my strategy. I have to write everything down longhand. Are you going to work on the app today? Probably not. We need to get through Rustlings. Once I get through Rustlings, then I can say then I can go back to the app, and then I can say I'm done with Rust. Oblivion, that's the quick mental trick. To be fully accurate, do 9.5 or 9 divided by half plus 32. I mean, the thing is, like, I know the formula to do the conversion. I just can't do it in my head, or at least not very quickly. For the purposes of making really customizable systems easy to use for people who don't know how to want to edit a bunch of arguments and such, just for all UX purposes. Oh, so like basically like huh. So what will be the output of those programs? Is the output of those programs like a encoded StreamerBot configuration that people can copy and paste into StreamerBot, or it sort of kind of helps Oblivion, but I've just never been good at thinking very quickly, doing math very quickly in my head. My son's really good at it. My son always uses mental math. I, however, do not use mental math. How long have you been learning Rust? Let's see. We can go. I'll just go based off the streams on the channel. I think like right around 2 or 3 weeks. I think. We spent like the first few days of the year working on a buy me a coffee website. Let's see. Let's see when the first Rust stream was. Let's see, 2 weeks ago. When was this? This was 3 weeks ago, January 5th. So 22 days. Yeah, 22 days we've been learning Rust. So a good chunk of time. Much longer than all those videos that say you can learn programming languages in like 30 minutes. All right, we have to go. We have to do more reading today because we've gotten to a place in the Rustlings exercises where we have to deal with smart pointers, and specifically in this exercise, we have to deal with something called arc. So we've got more reading to do. So we read through this yesterday. We read through all of this yesterday. Did we read through this? Treating smart point. Yeah, we read through this. There we go. This is our next one. Reading about the drop trait. Hello, Blackfire. Good to see you. Melty, I'm just inexperienced with this. Rust displays errors in a really unique format. Yeah, it has like really helpful error information. It's like it has like the error, and then it has like a note section, and then it has like a recommendation or like a hint or something. It has like 3 sections for a lot of the errors that are supposed to help you like figure out what the hell you've done wrong. It's very, very instructive. Good morning, Maddie. Oblivious. It's just minus 30 divided by 2. I don't know what you want from me. Fun fact, 50 minus 32 is also 10, so that's a useful, accurate cross-section with the shorthand. Oh, that's good to know. So 50 is approximately 10. Melty, don't know why that kind of thing isn't a standard. Probably just because some languages weren't built with a lot of foresight, you know? I don't know. It seems like kind of a programming truism that error messages always get ignored or left to the last minute, kind of like documentation. Like just not this like seems like a truism that errors in documentation don't get a ton of effort or thought put into them. Not saying that that's a good thing. It just seems like that's a pretty common thing in most projects. All right, I do have a hard stop at yeah, I have a hard stop at 7 because I got to get ready and go to the office today. So we're gonna jump right in here. All right. P.S. Before I knock out, even if I'm going to sleep, I'm not. If I'm even going to sleep at this point, I hate C++ now. I hear you loud and clear, Melty. I hear you loud and clear. Hate C++. Hate it. Maddie, oh no. Yeah, oh no is right. But it must be done every now and again. Okay. Running code on cleanup with the drop trait. The second trait important, which this is basically makes me think of iDisposable in C#. The second trait important to the smart pointer pattern is drop, which lets you customize what happens when a value is about to go out of scope. You can provide an implementation for the drop trait on any type, and that code can be used to release resources like files or network connections. We're introducing drop in the context of smart pointers because the functionality of the drop trait is almost always used when implementing a smart pointer. For example, when a box T is dropped, it will deallocate the space on the heap that the box points to. In some languages, for some types, the programmer must call code to free memory or resources every time they finish using an instance of those types. Examples include file handles, sockets, and locks. If the programmer forgets, the system might become overloaded and crash. In Rust, you can specify that a particular bit of code be run whenever a value goes out of scope, and the compiler will insert this code automatically. As a result, you don't need to be careful about placing cleanup code everywhere in a program that an instance of a particular type is finished with. You still won't leak resources. You specify the code to run when a value goes out of scope by implementing the drop trait. The drop trait requires you to implement one method named drop that takes a mutable reference to self. To see when Rust calls drop, let's implement drop with printline statements for now. Custom smart pointer struct, whose only custom functionality is that it will print dropping custom smart pointer. when the instant goes out of scope to show when Rust runs the drop method. Okay, so we say impl drop for custom smart pointer. We define the drop method and we print some stuff. And then we create some instances of the smart pointer. We do some stuff and we should see print lines. The drop trait is included in the prelude, so we don't need to bring it into scope. We implement the drop trait on custom smart pointer and provide an implementation for the drop method that calls printline. The body of the drop method is where you should place any logic that you wanted to run when an instance of your type goes out of scope. We're printing some text here to demonstrate visually when Rust will call drop. In main, we create two instances, yada yada yada. Note that we didn't need to call the drop method. When we run this program, we'll see the following. Rust automatically called drop for us when our instance went out of scope, calling the code we specified. Okay. This all seems very straightforward. I understand the concept. Unfortunately, it's not straightforward to disable the automatic drop functionality. Disabling drop isn't usually necessary. The whole point of the drop trait is that it's taken care of automatically. Occasionally, however, you might want to clean up a value early. One example is when using smart pointers that manage locks. You might want to force the drop method that releases the lock so that other code in the same scope can acquire the lock. Rust doesn't let you call the drop trait's drop method manually. Instead, you have to call the system mem drop function provided by the standard library if you want to force a value to be dropped before the end of its scope. Trying to call the drop trait's drop method manually by modifying the main function won't work. Okay. When we try to compile this code, we'll get this error. Consider using drop function. Explicit destructor calls not allowed. This error message states that we're not allowed to explicitly call drop. The error message uses the term destructor, which is the general programming term for a function that cleans up an instance. A destructor is analogous to a constructor. Oh, really? Okay. Who would have thought? Which creates an instance? The drop function in Rust is one particular destructor. Rust doesn't let us call drop explicitly because Rust would still automatically call drop on the value at the end of main. This would cause a double free error because Rust would be trying to clean up the same value twice. We can't disable the automatic insertion of drop when a value goes out of scope, and we can't call the drop method explicitly, so we need to force a value to be cleaned up early. We use the standard mem drop function. It is different from the drop method in the drop trait. We call it by passing an argument, the value want to force drop. The function is in the prelude, so we can modify main, call the drop function. Easy peasy. You can use code specified in a drop trait implementation in many ways to make cleanup convenient and safe. For instance, you could use it to create your own memory allocator. With the drop trait Rust ownership system, you don't have to remember to clean up because Rust does it automatically. Excuse me. You also don't have to worry about problems resulting from accidentally cleaning up values still in use. The ownership system that makes sure references are always valid also ensures that drop gets called only once when the value is no longer being used. Now that we've examined box T and some of the characteristics of smart pointers, let's look at a few other smart pointers defined in the standard library. Hopefully this is going to be the section that introduces us to, hey, what's up? Blackfire, 5-stream streak, let's go. That's awesome, man. All right, so this is called RC, the reference counted smart pointer. In the majority of cases, ownership is clear. You know exactly which variable owns a given value. However, there are cases when a single value might have multiple owners. For example, in graph data structures, multiple edges might point to the same node, and that node is conceptually owned by all the edges that point to it. A node shouldn't be cleaned up unless it doesn't have any edges pointing to it, and so has no owners. You have to enable multiple ownership explicitly by using the Rust type RCT. which is an abbreviation for reference counting. Interesting. The RCT type keeps track of the number of references to a value to determine whether or not the value is still in use. If there are 0 references to a value, the value can be cleaned up without any references becoming invalid. Huh. Okay. Imagine RCT as a TV in a family room. When one person enters to watch the TV, they turn it on. Others can come into the room, watch the TV. When the last person leaves the room, they turn off the TV because it is no longer being used. If someone turns off the TV while others are still watching it, there would be an uproar from the remaining TV watchers. We use the RCT type when we want to allocate some data on the heap for multiple parts of our program to read, and we can't determine at compile time which part will finish using the data last. If we knew which part would finish last, we could just make that part the data's owner, and the normal ownership rules enforced at compile time would take effect. Okay, this answered my question. I was just getting ready to say, it's like, okay, but in Rust you can have as many immutable references, right, to a singly owned piece of data. So why would I need to keep track of? But okay, I see. So this is like you've written your program in such a way that you can't necessarily ensure. Yeah, I don't know. I would need to see some concrete examples, I guess, of this. Note that RCT is only for use in single-threaded scenarios. When we discuss concurrency in Chapter 16, we'll cover how to do reference counting in multi-threaded programs. Fun! Let's return to our cons list example in listing 15.5. Recall that we defined its using box T. This time we'll create 2 lists that both share ownership of a 3rd list. Conceptually, this looks similar to figure 15.3. So you have list B, list C, then you have list A. List B and list C point to the beginning of list A. So they share ownership. They call them variables because they are very important. Good one. Good morning, Mark. Good to see you on YouTube and Twitch. Wow. Look at you. You're all over the place. Just flying around. Appreciate you, man. We'll create list A that contains 5 and then 10. Then we'll make 2 more lists B that starts with 3 and C that starts with 4. Both B and C lists will then continue on to the first A list containing 5 and 10. In other words, both lists will share the first list containing 5 and 10. Trying to implement this scenario using our definition of a list with box T won't work. When we compile this code, we get this error. Note, if list implemented clone, you could clone the value. Consider implementing clone. Use of moved value A. Okay. The cons variants own the data that they hold. So when we create the B list, A is moved into B and B owns A. Then when we try to use A again, when creating C, we're not allowed to because A has been moved. We could change the definition of cons to hold references instead, but then we would have to specify lifetime parameters. By specifying lifetime parameters, we would be specifying that every element in the list will live at least as long as the entire list. This is the case for elements in listing 15.17, but not in every scenario. Instead, we'll change our definition of list to use RCT in place of box T. Each cons variant will now hold a value and an RCT pointing to a list. When we create B, instead of taking ownership of A, we'll clone the RC list that A is holding, therefore increasing the number of references from 1 to 2 and letting A and B share ownership of the data in that RC list. We'll also clone A when creating C, increasing the number of references from 2 to 3. Every time we call RC clone, the reference count to the data within the RC list will increase, and the data won't be cleaned up unless there are 0 references to it. Let's see, we need to add a use statement to bring RCT into scope because it's not in the prelude. in main, we create the list, then we create B, yada, yada, yada. We could have called A clone rather than RC clone. Oh, so you say RC new, then you clone it, pass in a reference to A. Then we create B, we call... we could have called A clone rather than RC, but Rust convention is used in this case. The implementation of clone doesn't make a deep copy of all the data like most types implementations of clone do. The call to RC clone only increments the reference count, which doesn't take much time. Deep copies of data can take a lot of time. Okay. Huh. So I'm just wondering, like, when I look at this code, right, I'm just wondering, well, why... Okay, so I'm guessing what, like, the benefit here is I don't have to deal with lifetimes, right? Because if I had ampersand A and ampersand A here, I'd have to deal with lifetimes. But I'm not sure I totally understand I know when to use what, right? And I think I won't know that until I do a lot more Rust programming. Is what I'm picking up. Good morning, Kurtz. Good to see you. I got it from a Primogen concept. The video was making fun of vibe coders for not knowing what variables are, which I might have took offense to because I definitely know what a variable is. That's funny. Well, apparently there's a new term for those of us who don't vibe code. You're called a trad coder. I guess this is a thing. So I guess I have to officially embrace the label, the moniker trad coder. I'm a trad coder. Kurt's a what? Yeah, a trad T. Yeah, like a trad wife. Exactly. Yeah. Well, good morning, Light Verdant. Good to see you, man. Yeah. I know when I heard that, I laughed my ass off. Mark, what is dealing with lifetimes? Dealing with lifetimes mean if we had references, we would have to tell the compiler, or not the compiler, I guess the borrow checker. We'd have to tell the borrow checker how our variables are related to how our variables lifetimes are related to each other, and we'd have to have some sort of lifetime parameter where we tell how do I do this? Where we say, you know, how do I text like this? Do like I don't even know the right syntax, but it's something like let a, and then we'd have to type it, and we'd have to give it some sort of, let's say, B, you know, and we'd have to give it some sort of type, I don't know, string. And so we'd have to deal with lifetime specifiers. Instead of here, we can just use this reference counter smart pointer type. And they said that up above. They said, like, hey, like, we get it. You could just change the definition. Where was it? Up above here somewhere. Forget where it was. Here we go. There's what they talk about. They say we could change the definition of cons to hold references instead, but then we would have to specify lifetime parameters. Yeah. Which is kind of painful. Which I wonder... Let's see. I wonder... Let's see if Gemini can tell us what this would look like. Let's see. This bit of code is using an RC reference, or sorry, RC smart pointer. Could you show me what it would look like if instead we use references with lifetimes specified? Yeah, so here we go. So you actually wouldn't have to define anything here, but you would have to come up here in your enum and you'd have to give it a specific specifier that says this, basically saying this list lives as long as the parent does. And so that would mean then every list in your list lives as long as the topmost list, I guess, is what it would mean. So I guess that's not too bad. I thought you were going to have to update some code in here. That's not too bad. See, with RC, the nodes are heap allocated and managed automatically. With references, you are responsible for ensuring the reference objects are declared in an order that keeps them alive long enough. So that's where you're still in control of ordering your code in such a way that you don't drop references too early. Because that's the thing I think that's the thing that's really confusing with the lifetime specification is the lifetime specification doesn't alter anything about how long something lives. It's just trying to help the borrow checker do its job. You still would have to you still would be responsible for making sure that you use them at the correct time and place in your program. Light birded. Okay, I might watch there because YouTube is ass. Yeah, you can come on over to Twitch. That's fine. Yeah, totally fine. There should be a pinned comment. There should be a pinned comment on YouTube for the Twitch link. You should buy a sundress. Hello, guys. I'm a trad coder. Where were we? Oh, yeah, we're right here. Okay. Let's see, Mark. Thank you for explaining furthermore. Man, I need to socialize more. What was that about? It's TikTok slang used for the traditional stay-at-home wives who take care of the kids, cook, clean, worship their man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know in this context if it's derogatory or not, but I mean, I stole it from the Primogen stream. That's where I got it. Was from his stream. But it's pretty funny. I'll be a trad coder. Excuse me. I mean, trad-wise wear that shit like a badge of honor, so I don't know about D-Rock, but yeah. Primogen funny as fuck. He is funny. He is very, very funny. All right, let's change our working example in listing 1518 so that we can see the reference counts changing as we create and drop references to the RC list in A. We'll change main so that it has an inner scope around list C. Then we can see how the reference count changes when RC goes out. Oh, that's kind of cool. So there's like a helper. There's like a helper method where you can actually get the count of the RC. That's cool. At each point in the program where the reference count changes, we print the reference count, which we get by calling RC strong count function. This function is named strong count rather than count because RC of type T type also has a weak count, which we'll see what weak count is used for in preventing reference cycles using weak T. I tell you what, this rabbit hole just goes deeper and deeper. We can see that RC list in A has an initial reference count of 1. Then each time we call clone, the count goes up by 1. When C goes out of scope, the count goes down by 1. We don't have to call a function to decrease the reference count like we have to call RC clone to increase the reference count. The implementation of the drop trait decreases the reference count automatically when an RCT value goes out of scope. I can never be a trad wife, but at least I can be a trad coder. Exactly. I'm a trad coder now. What we can't see in this example is that when B and then A go out of scope at the end of main, the count is 0, and the RC list is cleaned up completely. Using RCT allows a single value to have multiple owners, and the count ensures that the value remains valid as long as any of the owners still exist via immutable references. RCT allows you to share data between multiple parts of your program for reading only. If RCT allowed you to have multiple mutable references too, you might violate one of the borrowing rules discussed in Chapter 4. Multiple mutable borrowers to the same place can cause data races and inconsistencies, but being able to mutate data is very useful. In the next section, we'll discuss the interior mutability pattern and the RefCell T type that you can use in conjunction with an RCT to work with this immutability restriction. Okay, so is this, hold on. First of all, I am going to, let's see, the Rust programming language, Brown EDU. I think this is a better version of the book, in my opinion. Okay, so this is basically a way to get around the compile time check, right? Is that what I'm getting out of this? Let's see if Gemini can. Let's see. I'm learning about Rust I'm learning about Rust, and specifically, I am learning about RC of type T. This seems very similar to the existing functionality you get with ownership, where you can have multiple immutable references. RC basically, or RC seems to allow the same thing, but just avoid the compile time strictness. Is that an accurate statement? Let's see, this is but it's not quite accurate to say RC is just to avoid compile time strictness. While they both allow multiple readers, they solve two fundamentally different problems regarding lifetime and scope. The standard immutable reference is a borrow. It implies that someone else, the owner, is responsible for keeping the data alive. If the owner goes out of scope, the reference becomes invalid, and the compiler stops you. Is a shared ownership. There's no single owner. Instead, every RC pointer owns the data. The data only dies when the very last RC pointer is dropped. Okay, so you need RCT when you cannot determine at compile time which part of your program will finish using the data last. It is important to note that RCT does not actually bypass Rust safety rules, instead enforces them at runtime. Yeah, this statement kind of bothers me. Right? I don't know, this statement kind of bothers me because it's kind of like the whole, like, even if you're prevented from doing something at runtime, that's still like kind of too late, right? Like your program's running. So it's like, I don't know if I really, that doesn't, I've seen this not just from Gemini. This has been stated in places, I think in the book even, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. For example, RC only gives you immutable access. So like, I guess I guess based on that, why would you ever fuck around with using borrows and immutable using immutable references and fighting the borrow checker to figure out how to author your code to keep things alive yourself if you can just use RC to do it for you. That's a fair question. If RCT solves the headache of lifetimes, it's tempting to use it for everything. However, in the Rust community, reaching for RCT as a first resort is often considered an anti-pattern for a few specific reasons. Performance, okay, that's fine. Thread safety is strictly for single-threaded use. The counter is not atomic, so if you try to share an RC across threads, okay, that's a good reason. This is the biggest technical trap. If you use RC everywhere, you can accidentally create reference cycles. I love this. So it's kind of like a foot gun. It's like, oh, no. This is useful, and you want to use it, but don't use it in these specific cases under these specific conditions because it's really gonna screw you. Yeah, this is programming. This is programming. Almost dev, fifth like me. What are you trying to say? Almost devs? I didn't catch the reference. Determine whether the program will pass the compiler. If it passes, write the expected output of the program if it were executed. So we new up an RC and we clone it. So I'm guessing at this point we have 2. So I think this compiles, and then I think into goes out of scope here. So then this becomes 1. Determine whether the program will pass the compiler. If it passes, write the expected output of the program if it were executed. So let's see, drop for example, RC new. Okay, so you dropped X here, you dropped Y here. So I think it's going to be A drop B drop C. Oh no, hold on. Can you? Oh yeah, you can drop. Okay, so I think it does compile, and I think it's going to be A drop B drop C. Oh man. Oh man. See, the program does compile the output of the program, so that my compilation, I got these wrong. All right, well, see the correct answers. See, this program does not compile. Data inside an RC cannot be mutable. Oh, I missed that. RC enforces this property by implementing the deref trait, but not implementing the dereference mut trait. Let's see. Question 2. Whether the program will pass the compiler. Context. The value inside a reference counted pointer is only ever dropped once. So drop is only printed once. The initial drop decrements the reference count, but does not drop the value because Y is still alive. Then dropping Y finds that the reference count is 0 and drops example. Oh, so drop just decrements. Okay, that's all it does. Until you get to a count of 0, then drop actually runs. Okay. Well, I failed that quiz, but that's okay. I learned. Let's see, RefCell, T, and the interior mutability pattern. I want to remind you guys that the whole reason we're reading this is so that we can do this exercise, which has to deal with arc. Which is really interesting because the first thing you learn about is, oh, maybe these, am I in the wrong order? I should be doing box 1. Okay. I have enough information to do box 1. I have enough information to do this. So let's do box. That's funny. I thought I needed to do arc 1 because it was the first one in the directory, but that's just because of the naming. I should actually follow whatever's down here in the wrestling's command line. My bad. My bad. Okay, so we've got box here. Now we need to create an empty cons list. Create a non-empties cons list. Okay. So this would be list nil. And then we have to create a non-empty list. So this would be, nope, copilot, copilot, So we do list con. Is my LSP not attached? It doesn't look like the Rust analyzer attached. Let's see. LSP start Rust analyzer. Huh. I'm not sure why I didn't start right away, but so we have cons, and then we do list. Sorry, we can do 30. Let's see. Let's do 7 and list nil. Right? Oh, box new. There we go. All right, now we're doing reference. We already learned about that one. So let's do RC1. In this exercise, we want to express the concept of multiple owners via the RCT type. This is a model of our solar system. There's a sun type and multiple planets. The planets take ownership of the sun, indicating that they revolve around the sun. Okay. So am I supposed to do something here? Oh, to do. Okay. So what am I supposed to do here? See, a search. Oh, it just wants me to drop. Is that what it wants me to do? It just wants me to call drop on, see, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury. I was like, wait a minute, what are you trying to ask me to do? So we want drop Earth. Venus. Mercury. You know what's kind of weird? Is growing up in school, I learned about the planets in our solar system like a lot. Like I remember learning about the planets in the solar system quite a bit. And as an adult, I've used that knowledge basically never. um, which is just so it's so funny the things you learn in school and they didn't just never come back up. Okay, why doesn't this work? Should I be dropping this before? Oh, there's to-dos here too. Let's see. So what do we want to do here? We want to do. So you want strong count to be sun. Oh, this should be clone, not new. It's kind of a weird exercise. Heck yeah. On to the next one. All right, now we need to learn about arc. So we're back into the book. You forgot the planets, moon, and sun. I don't think so. Mark, hello, Steven. How's the rock, paper, scissors work? I'm talking about the Odin project, so I could beat the computer, or was it random? Uh, what do you mean? Building a rock, paper, scissors game? Is that what you're talking about? Did I build a rock, paper, scissors as a part of that? I don't remember. It's been so long since I worked on the Odin project. I still would like to go back and finish that course. Oh yeah, I guess I did. I don't remember. I don't even remember what I wrote. And that's not even the right link either. There we go. Yeah, it just looks like it uses randomness, math.random, to choose. No, I look it up in your GitHub. Oh yeah, it looks like it just uses math.random to get choices for the computer. I guess I should probably change that link on my README, huh? I need to redo my README. I need to redo my personal website too at some point. Bro, all these links are wrong. That's silly. Rock, paper, scissors. Etch a sketch. Sorry, I'm taking a brief detour from the book for a second to fix these links. There we go. Now it works. Yeah, it just uses math.random. There's nothing fancy going on there with the rock, paper, scissors game. You look tried, man. You mean I look tired? Is that what you're trying to say? I don't feel tired, but if I look tired, maybe I need to sleep more. I feel like I got good sleep last night. All right, here we go. Interior mutability is a design pattern in Rust that allows you to mutate data even when there are immutable references to that data. Normally, this action is disallowed by the borrowing rules. To mutate data, the pattern uses unsafe code inside a data structure to bend Rust's usual rules that govern mutation and borrowing. Unsafe code indicates to the compiler that we are checking the rules manually instead of relying on the compiler to check them for us. We will discuss unsafe code more in Chapter 20. We can use types that use the interior mutability pattern only when we can ensure that the borrowing rules will be followed at runtime, even though the compiler can't guarantee that. The unsafe code involved is then wrapped in a safe API, and the outer type is still immutable. Excuse me. Let's explore this concept by looking at the RefCell type that follows the interior mutability pattern, enforcing borrowing rules at runtime with RefCell. Unlike RCT, the RefCell type represents single ownership over the data it holds. So what makes RefCell different from a type like box_t? Recall the borrowing rules you learned in Chapter 4. At any given time, you can have either one mutable reference or any number of immutable references. References must always be valid. With references in box_t, the borrowing rules invariants are enforced at compile time. With RefCell, these invariants are enforced at runtime. With references, if you break these rules, you'll get a compiler error. With RefCell, if you break these rules, your program will panic and exit. So see, to me, that doesn't. To me, that means that you are bypassing the safety that Rust offers you, right? You're opting in to a situation where you're going to crash your program, which seems like a bad choice. But there must be times when you have to use these features. There must be times where it's absolutely necessary to do these things in this way. And I just don't understand. The advantages of checking the borrowing rules at compile time are that errors will be caught sooner in the development process, and there is no impact on runtime performance because all the analysis is completed beforehand. For those reasons, checking the borrowing rules at compile time is the best choice in majority of cases, which is why this is Rust's default. The advantage of checking the borrowing rules at runtime instead is that certain memory-safe scenarios are then allowed, where they would have been disallowed by the compile time checks. Static analysis, like the Rust compiler, is inherently conservative. Some properties of code are impossible to detect by analyzing the code. The most famous example is the halting problem, which is beyond the scope of this book, but is an interesting topic to research. The halting problem, what's that? Explain to me the halting problem. Remember, I am not a formally trained computer scientist. So please explain it in an understandable way to someone who only has a bachelor's of science in biochemistry. This is the highest level of education I've completed. Okay, the halting problem is one of the most famous and profound puzzles in computer science. It essentially asks, is it possible to write a computer program that can look at any other program and its inputs and determine if that program will eventually finish or run forever in an infinite loop? In 1936, Alan Turing proved that such a program is mathematically impossible to create. I hate that it does this. You might think of this like, I don't like that. I don't want you to use biochemistry analogies. I just want you to take that into consideration, that that's the level of intelligence I have. This that could analyze metabolic pathway, predict 100% certainty whether that pathway will reach an equilibrium state or continue to cycle indefinitely without actually letting the reaction run. Turing proved that for computation, this predictor cannot exist. The proof of contradiction. And to understand why, we use a classic logical trap. Imagine we did manage to write a perfect program called predictor. Predictor program input returns halts if the program finishes, or loops if it goes on forever. Now we build a saboteur program called opposite. This program uses predictor inside of it. If predictor says a program will halt, opposite is programmed to enter an infinite loop. If predictor says a program will loop, opposite is programmed to stop immediately. The breakdown happens when we ask predictor to analyze opposite. If predictor says opposite will halt, then opposite, following its own code, will loop, a contradiction. If predictor says opposite will loop, then opposite will halt. Because we hit a logical wall where no answer can be right, the original assumption must be false. Let's see. This is just a brain teaser. It establishes the fundamental limits of what computers can do. It means a compiler can't always know for sure if your code is efficient or if it will hang. Security. It means we cannot write a perfect antivirus that detects every possible malicious behavior. Some behaviors are only identifiable by running the code to its end. It reveals that the universe of problems that exist is much larger than the universe of problems that can be solved by a computer. Yeah. Show me it in C#. Huh. I guess I don't see the what do you call it? I don't see the significance in that. I read that and I thought, and I think, okay, that's interesting, but I don't see the significance in it. I guess the only significance is that there's some logical proof that you can't solve everything, I guess. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the significance of the halting problem is. Good morning, Arbor Studios. Arvin messaged me today. Oh, nice. Is he doing okay? I'm guessing they must have turned the internet back on there in Iran, huh? Or Iran, sorry. To be fair, I've heard of the halting problem in first year of comp sci. Oh yeah, I did not take any. I mean, I guess I took computer programming 1 and computer programming 2, but I'm not a comp sci major. Let's see, oblivious. Anything async or parallel needs this style of programming. Oh, interesting. Okay. RC or Arc just provide the ability to not make it bad. Okay, interesting. I guess I haven't gotten into any areas of Rust programming where this would make sense to me. Light Aura, hello Light Aura, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by on Twitch. Well, he said he wasn't dead yet, so I guess yeah, for sure, that's a win. Good morning, Amba. Good to see you. The tuition is gonna make me go. Okay, no worries, Arbor Studios. Have fun. Yeah, I've just been curious to know if Arvin's doing well. You know, I don't know him personally. You know, I just know him from chat. But obviously, I can't imagine what it is to grow up or to be going through what is happening there right now. It must be very distressing. So hopefully, him and his family are doing okay. Let's see, it's significant because it lets us know when a problem is not unsolved because we haven't tried hard enough. Okay, I understand the significance there, but I'm not sure how you would apply that in a real world scenario. Like in a real world scenario, how would you apply that logic to figure out that you haven't tried hard enough? You know? It's like, yeah, it basically proves the existence of such a scenario, but then how would you actually test for that? You know, it's like, have I tried hard enough to get a job? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how you would. That's why to me, I'm like, I'm not sure how what the significance is. Well, in this case, there are things the compiler would like to be able to conclude from, but it's logically cannot. Yeah, I mean that makes sense in this, like, but like building compilers, right, is like a very narrow field. Right? So, like, how would you extrapolate that realization to? I guess it only is really relevant to the area of computing. Doesn't seem like it has much significance outside of that. Mark, man, the etch the sketch was great. I'm interested in recreating it. And may I ask for some resources to learn to run my sample project on GitHub? You mean you want to use GitHub Pages to host your projects? Is that what you're saying? I don't have any good resources off the top of my head for that, but I think GitHub has documentation on that. GitHub, let's see, GitHub Pages tutorial. Yeah, here we go. This might be what you're looking for. GitHub Pages is a really nice way to just deploy like static websites, you know? There you go. There you go, Mark. That might be a good way. We can host static pages easily. Yes, GitHub Pages is really nice for doing that. If you don't want to deal with any other complexities, right? I think it proves that you cannot look at a set of instructions and know if it will work or not, even without knowing the data it relies on. The example even showed that the observer itself can influence the outcome. Yes, no, I understand that. I guess it doesn't land for me as being significant, I guess. And maybe that's because I don't build compilers or I don't do low-level programming or I don't know. It's like, oh, that's cool, but I don't know. It doesn't land with very much significance, but it obviously was a big deal. I'm just like, okay, cool. It must be important to somebody else. Mark, okay, thanks. I'll be taking note on that. Yeah, try that out. It's pretty cool. You know, if you just have static web pages, which I think is what that etch a sketch project. I think that's how all those get Odin projects are hosted on that are linked to in my profile. I think all of them are hosted on GitHub pages because they're all just JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. That's all it is. And every time you yawn, I can't stop myself. You also, yeah, I know. Isn't that a weird phenomenon? It's significant in math, such as group and set theory, along with chemistry and other computational fields. I don't know. I did a whole degree in biochemistry, and the halting problem never came up. I took analytical chemistry, took physical chemistry, took organic chemistry 1, organic chemistry 2, took Chem 1, Chem 2, took what else did I take? I took biochemistry 1, biochemistry 2, and then none of those classes did we ever discuss the halting problem. But maybe that's because I wasn't working at a high enough level. Maybe I need to go do like a master's or a PhD. It's about mechanisms of molecules. Huh. Definitely stupidly niche. Yeah. Never came up in 4 years of getting a degree. It never came up. See our studios. How's the rusting going? Not falling apart, I hope. Yeah, it's going good. We're not we're rusting and we're not falling apart. We're still trying to make our way through the smart pointer section is what we're doing right now, Ryan. Good to see you, man. Jai is the most interesting language I have seen. It really took compile time, execution, and meta programming to the next level. Jai is the thing that Jonathan Blow came up with, right, Voltaire? That's which I guess Jai. I heard him say I heard him say in an interview that Jai is only the experimental, or no, it's the code word for the language. So you open up the idea I had one in my first year in college, and yes, I like pixel art. Pixel art is very cool. Yeah. I looked it up. Protein folding is an example where we have some brute force solutions, but there can never be a complete solution. I guess not without AlphaFold, right? But I guess AlphaFold just predicts, right? It just predicts how proteins will fold. All right, I'm gonna take a quick break before we read more about RefCell T. I'm gonna go upstairs and get another cup of coffee. If I'm going to the office today, I need to be well caffeinated. Well, I love that emote, Mark. Where did you find that emote? I'll be right back. BRB.
I'd like to say something. Woof 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 woof.
It's kind of got like a beat.
Voltaire's puppet is telling you to drink some coffee.
All right, I'm gonna drink the rest of my coffee right here. Ryan, it's my understanding that we have software that predicts how proteins will fold and can create new protein structures. I think that's AlphaFold is what you're thinking of. That's what Google DeepMind came up with. All right, I'll be right back. Let's see, mute. Yeah. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Back in the now. What did I miss? Maybe the software I'm thinking of was fed by that decentralized manual protein folding game that got pretty big back in the early 10s. Oh, interesting. Okay. That sounds pretty cool. Didn't AlphaFold start with crowdsourcing? I don't think so. I thought AlphaFold was something that Google DeepMind developed, but I could be wrong too. Where can I redeem caffeinate? Oh, I didn't notice it. You have to scroll to see. You had the same problem. AlphaFold is a machine learning program. Yes, indeed. Yeah, as far as the Twitch rewards go, they should be there. I added a reward for caffeinate, hydrate, and text-to-speech. The text-to-speech costs more than the caffeinate and hydrate rewards because I feel like allowing people to randomly say stuff on my stream could get problematic. But yeah, I did lower all of them too though recently. I lowered them all to like by 200 points or something like that. So if you ever want to do text to speech on my stream, you can go over to Twitch, and I think if you watch for about an hour, then you'll earn enough points to do text to speech, or you can just pay money to do it. but I understand not wanting to do that. Looking at my 12.8k points eagerly, I could cause so much problems. Oh man, that's like a stockpile. That's crazy. Safin the ship. Hello, Safin the ship. Good to see you. Why do you use Windows? I don't know. Not really. There's not really like a super academic reason for it. Long story short, when I was having my first kid, this would have been 2016. Yeah, so I had forever been a MacBook user for a long time. Since I got my first laptop, I had been a Mac user, Mac OS user. And then when I had my first kid, I couldn't justify spending $1,000 or $1,500 anymore for 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigs of SSD. I just couldn't justify it. The cost to get an equivalent Mac for the specs that I wanted was just too great. So I think the next time I upgraded my computer after my first kid was born, I switched to the PC side because my dollar went further, and then I just stayed over there. So there's really no like sophisticated reason other than I switched, and that's what I was using, and that's what I was using before I started learning how to program. And then when I started learning to program and code, was the operating system I was on, and I just stayed with it. And I enjoy it, and I don't mind it like other folks do. I know other folks have really strong opinions about these things, but I'm okay with Windows. I'm okay with Mac. I got a couple old MacBooks over here that I use from time to time. I have Linux servers that I host things on. I'm pretty agnostic about all that stuff. Like I don't give a shit what operating system you use. I don't care what editor you use. I don't care what programming language you use. All I care is that you're enjoying it, that you have fun, that it makes you want to build more shit, makes you want to be more creative, makes you productive, brings joy to your life. Other than that, I have no opinions. Yeah. People ask me that quite a bit. A lot of times people don't ask me why I use Windows. A lot of times people ask me why I don't use Linux. And it's always, my answer is always, I don't, it's like I don't have a good answer. I just do. It's like why do you use C#? I don't know. I like it. Why do you use TypeScript? I don't know. It's good. That's a good take, Steven. I never understood tool worshippers. Yeah, me neither. I mean, I don't come from this world. You know what I mean? Like I don't come from like this techie background world. Like I did not grow up. I have not grown up since like the age of 8 years old fiddling with computers, right? And exploring every random esoteric nooks and cranny of all this stuff. So I think I just have a different perspective on a lot of it. Just use whatever makes you the most productive. Exactly. Especially in 2026. In 2026, there's an example that you can point to that's built on whatever tech stack and set of tools that you want to use, right? It's like the argument that you can't do something with one of these things is kind of mute at this point. I'm a Linux elitist, and if you aren't using this OS, it is so obscure only 5 people know about it. You are bad at tech. That's basically how some people treat you. Oh, you don't know Rust? You're not a real programmer. You've never built your own compiler in C? How could you ever claim to be a developer? Oh, you don't build and use your own browser engine? You just use an off-the-shelf browser engine? What? Oh man. You'll never be a real software engineer. Sweetheart. Okay, another question. Why are you learning Rust? Why not C++ or Python or C or JavaScript or assembly? Yeah, just cause. Like honestly, I've never done any low-level systems type of programming. I've never used a language that's kind of used in that way. And so I was like, okay, well, I could learn C, but C seems like it's old and losing favor as a systems language. Or at the time, that's how it felt when I was thinking about these things. And a lot of people were saying like the new thing was going to be Rust or Zig. And so I was kind of debating like, do I learn Zig or do I learn Rust? And Rust seemed interesting, so I just was like, okay, I'll do Rust. You know, it's like it's not any more sophisticated than that. Sounds interesting. Never done anything with manual memory management. Let's give her a go. Today I said something I find hilarious to a Linux user. Arch users are very opinionated, but their software not being opinionated. That's fair. Blackfire. You don't use Temple OS? I know. How oh. I think C is never gonna go. Mark leaving quietly. See you, Mark. I also like that was written as a function call. Yeah, I don't know if C is ever gonna go away. Honestly, Swikar. I just remember like at the time, I don't know if it was on Tech Twitter or what, but I was just hearing in the zeitgeist that like why use memory unsafe languages. Memory unsafe languages, I think was how it was framed to me. So like why use something like C or C++ when you have newer things like Rust and Zig? And at that point I was like, yeah, I mean I'm probably never going to actually work professionally in C, right? So I was like, oh, okay, well, why spend time learning stuff that's going out of favor? Why not learn one of the new ones? So that's why. Whether or not that was a good argument or not, I don't know. It's why I ended up considering learning Zig and Rust and not C and C++. I'm an Arch I'm an Arch user and I feel targeted. I think that was Oblivion's point. Temple OS is a banger. Yeah, I've never used it. Voltaire chat on leave wave. Okay, I like this. I like that we're using programming. I like that we're using language syntax to write chat messages. This feels very on brand. I just stepped outside. It's single digits out here. Jesus, that sounds horrible. Absolutely horrible. Time and place even for the languages. Why does a fellow... Because Oblivion said something about Arch users being opinionated, but their software being unopinionated. Let's see. I began learning C because my first programming language was Pawn, similar to C, for the San Andreas multiplayer mod. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I should feel targeted, but I don't know why. I personally think the Arch community is deserving of being targeted for its stereotypes. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to hang out with tech people who are like chill, normal folk who have perspective on life and aren't like they don't. I don't want people that like are gonna like carry around pitchforks and like string you up if you don't agree with them that their thing isn't the best thing. I'm just so opinionated on that shit. Like I don't care, man. Use whatever editor you want. Use whatever operating system you want. Are you having fun? Go for it. Crew, C would also take enormous amount of time to make something on stream. Would it really? I've never written any C, so I don't know what the development experience is like. It takes me an enormous amount of time to make anything ever with any language, so it might actually not matter. deep engineered. I use Mint, by the way. Nice, nice. I want to make a T-shirt that says I use Neovim, by the way. So I'm definitely gonna make that T-shirt at some point. I guarantee you that there's Neovim merch. Yeah, if that exists, I will I will happily make it. The cult is too strong not to have merch. Ubuntu is also nice for beginners in Mint. Yeah, that's my only Linux distro I have any experience with is Ubuntu. I've never had the need and never felt the need to go really beyond that. It's been enough. It's been enough for me. All right, back to the book. Or at least I'm back to the book. You all can carry on your Linux discussions. All right, here we go. Because some analysis is impossible, if Rust compiler can't be sure the code compiles with ownership rules, it might reject a correct program. In this way, it's conservative. If Rust accepted an incorrect program, users wouldn't be able to trust in the guarantees Rust makes. However, if Rust rejects a correct program, the programmer will be inconvenienced, but nothing catastrophic can occur. The RefCell type is useful when you're sure your code follows the borrowing rules, but the compiler is unable to understand and guarantee that. Huh. This seems like wholly contradictive, right? Useful when you're sure your code follows the borrowing rules. I don't think I have enough confidence to be able to say I ever know this at this point in my Rust journey. Similar to RC, RefCell is only for use in single-threaded scenarios and will give you a compile time error if you try using it in a multi-threaded context. We'll talk about how to get functionality of RefCell in a multi-threaded program in Chapter 16. Here's a recap of the reasons to choose BoxT, RCT, or RefCell. Let's see. RC enables multiple owners of the same data. BoxT and RefCell have single owners. BoxT allows immutable or mutable borrows checked at compile time. RCT allows only immutable borrows checked at compile time. RefCell allows immutable or mutable borrowers checked at runtime. Because RefCell allows mutable borrows checked at runtime, you can mutate the value inside the RefCell even when this RefCell is immutable. Mutating the value inside an immutable value is the interior mutability pattern. Let's look at a situation in which interior mutability is useful and examine how it's possible. All right, so immutable borrow to an immutable value. A consequence of the borrowing rules is that when you have an immutable value, you can't borrow it mutably. For example, this code won't compile. If you tried to compile this code, you'd get the following error. Okay. However, there are situations in which it would be useful for a value to mutate itself in its methods but appear immutable to other code. Code outside the value's methods would not be able to mutate the value. Using RefCell is one way to get the ability to have interior mutability, but RefCell doesn't get around the borrowing rules completely. The borrow checker in the compiler allows this interior mutability, and the borrowing rules are checked at runtime instead. If you violate the rules, you'll get a panic instead of a compiler error. Let's work through a practical example where we can use RefCell to mutate an immutable value and see why this is useful. Sometimes during testing, a programmer will use a type in place of another type in order to observe particular behavior and assert that it's implemented correctly. This placeholder type is called a test double. Think of it in the sense of a stunt double in filmmaking, where a person steps in and substitutes for an actor to do a particularly tricky scene. Test doubles stand in for other types when we're running tests. Mock objects are a specific type of test double that record what happens during a test, so you can assert that the correct actions took place. Rust doesn't have objects in the same sense as other languages have objects, and Rust doesn't have mock object functionality built into the standard library, as some other languages do. However, you can definitely create a struct that will serve the same purpose as a mock object. Here's the scenario we'll test. We'll create a library that tracks a value against a maximum value and sends messages based on how close to the maximum value the current value is. This library could be used to keep track of users' quota for the number of API calls they're allowed to make, for example. Our library will only provide the functionality of tracking how close to the maximum a value is and what the messages should be at what times. Applications that use our library will be expected to provide the mechanism for sending the messages. The application could put a message in the application, send an email, send a text message, or do something else. The library doesn't need to know that detail. All it needs is something that implements a trait we'll provide called messenger. So a trait. Every time I see trait, I just think interface. I don't know if that's an accurate analog, but that's how I conceptualize it in my mind. Pub struct limit tracker takes a messenger of t, and then we say messenger. So this is okay. I can read this. This is basically saying limit tracker has a lifetime of a, and the messenger also has the same lifetime. So whatever we're given as a messenger will live as long as the limit tracker. Now we're going to implement a new function where we have a generic and we constrain that generic to a particular trait, which is awesome. Okay. And then we're going to set some values. Okay. So every time we set a value, we're going to calculate the percentage of max, and then we're going to have the messenger dispatch that percentage as a message, or send that percentage as a message, which is pretty cool. One important part of this code is that the messenger trait has one method called send that takes an immutable reference to self and the text of the message. Where? Yes, an immutable reference, okay? This trait is the interface our mock object needs to implement, so the mock can be used in the same way a real object is. The other important part is that we want to test the behavior of the setValue method on the limit tracker. We can change what we pass in for the value parameter, but setValue doesn't return anything for us to make assertions on. We want to be able to say that if we create a limit tracker with something that implements the messenger trait, and a particular value for max, when we pass different numbers for value, the messenger is told to send the appropriate messages. We need a mock object that instead of sending an email or text message when we call send, will only keep track of the messages it holds, messages it's told to send. We can create a new instance of the mock object, create a limit tracker that uses the mock object, and call the setValue method on limit tracker. Then check that the mock object has the messages we expect. Are you nerds talking about Linux usage over here? I use Windows, Arch, Fedora, Ubuntu, and NeoVim, by the way. That would be a very long thing to put on a t-shirt. Okay, wonderful. So we need a mock object. So we have a mock messenger. We knew up a mock messenger. Mock messenger send pushes messages. Obviously, this is going to be an issue though because, excuse me. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It can't borrow self as mutable. I was just getting ready to say that's the issue. Because here, self is an immutable reference. we can't modify the mock messenger to keep track of the messages because the send method takes an immutable reference to self. We also can't take the suggestion from the error text to use &mut self in both the impl method and the trait definition. We do not want to change the messenger trait solely for the sake of testing. Instead, we need to find a way to make our test code work correctly with our existing design. This is a situation in which interior mutability can help. Awesome. I gotta blow my nose real quick. Sorry. Oh, I gotta get my Rust game up. I understood like 10% of that. Well, I'm working on wall cam. I'm working on getting my Rust game up too. So I probably didn't understand much more than 10% of it. I'm just kidding. I understand. I understand actually what they're talking about. Okay, in this situation, which interior mutability, this is a situation in which interior mutability can help. We'll store the sent messages within a RefCell T, then the send method will be able to modify sent messages to store the messages we've seen. Okay. The sent message field, where is it? Yep, okay. And then how do we access it? We have to say sent messages dot borrow mutably dot push. Okay. For the implementation of the send method, the first parameter is still an immutable borrow of self, which matches the trait definition. We call borrow mut on the ref cell in self.sentMessages to get a mutable reference to the value inside the ref cell, which is the vector. Then we can call push on the mutable reference to the vec to keep track of the messages sent during the test. Last change we have to make is in the assertion to see how many items are in the inner vector. We call borrow on the ref cell to get an immutable reference to the vector. Now that you've seen how RefCell work, let's dig into let's see, what did I just read? Now that you've seen how to use RefCell T, let's dig into how it works. I guess my only concern is like, I understand this use case. This makes perfect sense to me, right? And so it's like, okay, I'll just use a RefCell. But what is the consequence of that? Or like, how can I get myself into trouble by doing this? Because this seems like you could get very lazy and just start using this to bypass things that you're running into at compile time, right? Like you're trying to define some stuff, you're running into the borrow checker, you're having issues getting your code to compile. So you're like, you know what? I'll just make it a ref cell. But I don't think I totally understand like how this becomes a foot gun, because I'm sure it does become a foot gun in some contexts. And maybe you just have to shoot yourself in the foot to figure that out, I guess, a few times. All right, when creating immutable references, we use ampersand and ampersand mut syntax, respectively. With RefCell T, we use the borrow and borrow mut methods, which are part of the safe API that belongs to the RefCell. The borrow method returns the smart pointer type ref_t, and borrow mut returns the smart pointer type ref_mut. Both types implement deref, so we can treat them like regular references. The ref cell keeps track of how many ref and ref_mut smart pointers are actually active every time we call borrow. The ref cell increases its count of how many immutable borrows are active. When a ref_t value goes out of scope, the count of immutable borrows goes down by 1, just like the compile time borrowing rules of RefCell. Lets us have many immutable borrows or one mutable borrow at any point in time. If we try to violate these rules rather than getting a compile error as we would with references, the implementation of RefCell will panic at runtime. See, this is the part where it's like, okay, I'm not sure I know how to do the job of the borrow checker in my head, which is basically what you're saying, right? Is like, in order to use this, you need to be certain that it's not going to blow up when you run your code. We're deliberately trying to create two mutable borrows active for the same scope to illustrate that RefCell T prevents us from doing this at runtime. Yeah, so you'd have to know. I guess this would be a good reason to have tests, right?
Kelsey Freeborn 4Yo63 says, what are these words you are saying? Lost.
Good morning, honey. I'm lost too most of the time reading all this stuff. It only makes sense to me. The reading is only necessary to get you like familiar, but you're only really going to own this knowledge when you go actually use it yourself. That's the only way. That's the only way it'll actually translate into like you actually knowing it, is when you actually have to apply it and understand it in a context, in the context of a problem that you're trying to solve. Ryan, they are transmission incantations. Duckboy, I can join the Discord later this stream. Just find me with the same username as here. Yeah, anybody's welcome to join Discord. The Discord is here. I'll put the link in the chat. Discord.stephenfreeborn.com. Everyone's welcome. There is a little bit of a application, but it's just there really just to try to keep the trolls out. That's the main reason. He says that, but I'm still in it. But you're not a troll, Uncle Pee-wee. You're not a troll. Or at least you're not the bad kind of troll. Sim linking seems like overhead to me. I try to keep everything inside .config. Things outside that, no sim links needed. Oh, we're talking about setting up our Linux setup. If you had a borrow somewhere else that you kept open for longer, important to remember all of this is single threaded at the minute, so no mutex overhead. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to call out, Voltaire. Yeah, for sure. We are in a non-concurrent context, non-multi-threaded context. Okay. So you notice that the code panicked with the message already borrowed. This is how RefCell T handles violations of the borrowing rules at runtime. Choosing to catch borrowing errors at runtime rather than compile time, as we've done here, means you'd potentially be finding mistakes in your code later in the development process, possibly not until your code was deployed to production. Also, your code could incur a small runtime performance penalty as a result of keeping track of the borrows at runtime rather than compile time. However, using RefCell T makes it possible to write a mock object that can modify itself to keep track of the messages it has seen while you're using it all in a context where only immutable values are allowed. You can use RefCell T despite its trade-offs to get more functionality than regular references would provide. Okay. But it could be async. Okay, yeah, that was a bad statement that I made, Voltaire. There could be concurrency, but we're not multi-threaded. Random noises? Blackfire move keyword seems like a good thing in Rust. Yeah, I don't. I need to probably go back and understand the move keyword because I've used it in 2 places in my Notepad application. I don't 100% understand why I'm using it. Yeah. Still need to figure out the whole borrowing system. Blackfire, those are the places I'm looking right now. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. There's a couple. It's basically, I use it in a couple places that are dealing with a lambda where I'm basically capturing scope from the outer within the lambda. And so I think what the move keyword is telling Rust or telling the borrow checker, the compiler, is I want the lambda to take ownership of the thing it captured from the outer scope. I think that's why that move keyword is there. Uncle Pee-wee, do bits not make noises? They should. Yeah, they should. Well, hold on. I take that back. I think the only thing I have set up for bits. Let me look. Twitch. Bit messages. Let's see. I have cheer. Cheer is the only thing that triggers text to speech. But I guess I can add other ones. It looks like. Let's see. Edit trigger. But I'm not sure what other. So I have this set up 100 bits. A 100-bit cheer will trigger a text to speech. I'm sorry. I'm very new to the Twitch.
I'd like to say something.
Depression bread. .7777 7777 777 777 7777 777 dot do 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 bo 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 joy gib jo jube. I have crippling depression do do dogo 99 bread baloobs dot www do dot 77
I'm not laughing.
edu.
TTS is the greatest invention of humanity. It really is. First of all, it just shows that we're all a bunch of children at heart. First and foremost, text to speech, for whatever reason, brings out the child in us. And then second off, I'm not laughing at your crippling depression. I'm just laughing at your message. So tell me, okay, so chat, I'm super new to the whole Twitch thing. So if there's other things that you guys would like, other stuff on Twitch that you would like to trigger stuff to happen on stream, I'm happy to set that up. I just went with the basic stuff that I understood.
Kelsey Freeborn 4063 says, "How dare you, sir? I am not a child."
No. The way that voice said, "How dare you, sir." Hold on, I'm gonna do something really quick. Text to speech has derailed the stream.
This is a test message.
This is a test message.
Sorry, I'm playing with SpeakerBot really quick. I want to do something real quick.
This is a test message.
Let's see. The voice gave so much energy behind that. It was amazing. It was amazing. I am not a child.
I'd like to say something.
This is a testy message. It's annoyed, but only midly.
Okay, I appreciate you guys using the text-to-speech functionality. It brings me a lot of joy. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, it did. Testy did sound a little off, didn't it? Let's see, a common way to use RefCell T is in combination with RCT. Recall that RCT lets you have multiple owners of some data, but it only gives immutable access to that data. If you have an RCT that holds a RefCell T, you can get a value that can have multiple owners and that you can mutate. For example, recall the cons list example in listing 1518, where we used RCT to allow multiple lists to share ownership of another list. Because RCT holds only immutable values, we can't change any of the values in the list once we've created them. Let's add in RefCell for its ability to change the values in the list. Let's see, shows that by using RefCell T in the cons definition, we can modify the value.
I'd like to say something.
Bowlocks can happen in archery competitions.
Random. Such a random piece of information. Have you ever eaten a grilled cheese? Oh, for sure I've eaten grilled cheese. I grew up in the Midwest to a low to middle income family. Like, we for sure ate grilled cheese like once a week. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. I mean, it's not a bad meal, you know, but it is kind of like it's a cheap meal, right? It's like the meal that you make to try to help save cost. But it's good. It's not bad. Almighty, well, now I know what I'm having for lunch. Yeah, I don't know. I like fancy grilled cheeses, but I'm not a big fan of like plain.
I'd like to say something.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?
I think Fuzzy Wuzzy was fuzzy. Yeah, for sure. Kurtz, wait, I just joined which meal? We were talking about grilled cheese and tomato soup. That it's a very canonical. If you grew up, I mean, it's probably not even Midwest, but if you grew up in a household where maybe you didn't have the most money, right, and your parents had to kind of watch their, count their pennies type of thing, it was probably a meal you had growing up, right? Like, pretty common meal. Bread and American cheese, or what are the yellow slices of cheese? What type of cheese is that? I don't even remember what it's called. But white bread and a Kraft singles is pretty cheap to make a sandwich. Uncle Pee-wee, invited to a work meeting at 6 a.m. is diabolical. It is diabolical. Having to go into the office is diabolical. I'm not looking forward to it, but I only have to do it like once a quarter, maybe twice a quarter, so it's really not a big deal. But yeah, whoever sent you a work meeting for 6 a.m., you need to just immediately have that automated to decline. I haven't heard that Fuzzy Wuzzy rhyme in like 30 years. It's been a long time too. Definitely heard it before, but it's been a long time. Okay, so this is our con list that we defined earlier. So we put an RC hold on. So you get a value that can have multiple owners and that you can mutate. So this I32 can have multiple owners and we can change the value. Okay, we're now we're getting into complexity, right? This is like now we have some.
I'd like to say something.
Fuzzy Wuzzy had hair, and fuzzy when he was named by Flair. But Flair didn't like Fuzzy Wuzzy's glare, so that was how Fuzzy Wuzzy ended with no hair.
I guess some of you had some channel points stored up, huh? We create a value that is an instance of RefCell stored in a variable named value so that we can access it directly later. 2.AK left. Nice. Some channel points. Yeah, I guess on Twitch, as a viewer, you earn points the longer you watch a stream and the more often you watch a stream. And if you do certain things while you're there watching the stream, you can earn points, and then you can redeem those points for some channel points. I got 2.9k left. Dang, you guys. I guess I underestimated how many points people had. Make text-to-speech 5k. I originally had it at 620 because Twitch told me that people earn about 220 points per hour. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, roughly an hour or two, I guess roughly 2 hours for text-to-speech. I thought, oh, that's pretty reasonable. But I guess I've got folks here that must hang out on Twitch quite often. I guess I underestimated how many people actually hang out consistently in my stream. I mean, I appreciate it, and I'm perfectly fine with you guys stocking up points and using them as you see fit, which is totally fine. I get a lot of joy from the text-to-speech myself, so. Which of the following best describes the concept of interior mutability in Rust? Allowing data on the inside of a data structure to be mutated. Using the borrow checker to enforce memory. Allowing data to be mutated through an immutable reference. Allow data to be mutated through an immutable reference. I think it's either one of these. I'm going to go with the top answer, although the bottom answer seems like it could also be valid. Consider an API that tracks the number of calls to a particular method. API count, API some method. Say the count is represented as a usize. Which of the following would be the most appropriate wrapper type to use for this situation? Increment the count, rest of the method. I guess RefCell. I'm gonna say RefCell because this is an immutable. It's immutably borrowing self here. So I'm gonna say RefCell. Consider the following incorrect implementation of a RefCell that does not check whether the interior value is borrowed. Now say we have a bad RefCell like this. Which of the following snippets would violate memory safety using this API?
K Freeborn 7 is reminding you to hydrate.
Thanks, honey. Hello, Nick Gamer X. How are you doing? Thanks for stopping in. Which of the following snippets would violate memory safety using this API? I think it's this one. But I'm not actually sure. I'm taking a guess. Oh man, I'm doing terrible on the quizzes today. Allowing data on the inside of a data structure to be mutated. Okay. Allowing data to be okay, so it was the other response I thought was correct. You answered RefCell. So usize, yep. Correct here. RefCell is useful to mutate an internal field, even though some method takes an immutable reference as input. If the internal field is just an integer, an even better choice of type would be cell usize or atomic usize. We haven't even talked about these types. Consider the following incorrect implementation of a RefCell. This does not check the interior value is borrowed. Now say we have let's see. I said this will violate it. The bad RefCell allows us to have two mutable references to the underlying data at the same time, which permits a memory safety violation like reallocating a vector while holding a reference to its content. Oh, I see. Okay. I've got a long way to go with Rust, man. I can tell you I've got a long way to go with being good at Rust. We still haven't talked about Arc, though, yet, have we? And I need to know about Arc to do the last exercise here. Is there some other area I'm supposed to be reading about arcs in? Maybe this one, chapter 16. See, this again is the problem with Rustlings, is they say you're supposed to use it alongside the book, but there isn't a very good clear delineation between like how the exercises and the points in the book map to each other. It doesn't seem like it's even linear, right? Like what they should do, this is just my thought. What they should do is in the book, anytime there's a concept in the book that's addressed through an exercise in Rustlings, there should be like an annotation in the book, a big annotation that's like, in order to test your understanding of this concept, go do exercise yada 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 in Rustlings. That's what they should connect it. Bob, no, Arc is the same as RC, but can be shared across threads. So that's not, we don't even get to concurrency for a while. Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have like 5 more sections to get there. Blackfire, I have to use the success part of the palette to encode different primary colors, for now at least. Oh, interesting. Oblivion, very naively, Arc is an atomic RC, so you need to lock and unwrap. Interesting. Well, I've got a lot more reading to do then before I get to doing the next section of this Rustlings exercise. If Rust is borrowing from Lisp, an atom is any data type that's not a list. Interesting. Blackfire, I can send you a version of the GitHub Dark Dimmed theme on Discord if you want. Yeah, send it along, man. Send it along. I actually did. I haven't showed you guys this yesterday. What I did on the Rust Notepad app, I made it so that it can run without being attached to the terminal, and I made it so it will in the future support multiple windows. It only supports a single window right now, but in the future, so now I can do Zoe, And now it'll actually exit in the console, so you can see the console isn't attached anymore. And now the Notepad app's running freely. And then in the future, we should be able to now have multiple windows. I haven't implemented support for that, but we will in the future. The thing I'm stuck on currently with this application is I don't know how to make horizontal scrolling work. So right now this just wraps because I have word wrapping on at the moment. But the vertical scrolling works just fine. But I can't get horizontal scroll to work. So I need to figure that out at some point. But so far it's come. I need to figure out how to change this too, like the window. I want the window. Well, I think I think that's actually coming from my Windows, but like Notepad doesn't have that same thing going on. So I'm gonna need to figure out how to remove that. I kind of wonder if it's showing up because I've set that in the window settings. Duck Boy is now lurking. Lurk away, man. If you find yourself terrible at something, know that I just burnt my fried eggs for dinner. Have a good one all. Oh, man, that sucks. This sucks. Bob, no, sorry I missed the stream yesterday. I slept like 14 hours. First stream I missed in weeks. Oh, no worries, dude, at all, man. Yeah. What? Why did you sleep so much? Was work brutal or something? Thank you, Blackfire. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, why did you sleep so much? So far, just concept. So keep that in mind. Oh man, you don't have to hedge anything you send me. I'm making it all up as I go, anyways. So I'm sure whatever you came up with is better than what I came up with. I wonder. Sometimes the Rust analyzer is very, very slow. And I don't know if that's a me problem or an it problem, but sometimes it is very slow. Recover it, delete it. I actually don't know. I guess delete it? Yeah, probably delete it. Don't need that anymore. Don't know. I have narcolepsy, so if I can't force myself up with alarms, I tend to keep sleeping. Do you really have narcolepsy? Has that ever impacted you, like, while driving or anything, or do you take medication for that? Didn't criticize him. He just wanted to stay stuck. So far, just concept, so keep that in mind. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Voltaire says RC is read-only, shared data, and single-threaded. Arc just...
I'd like to say something.
420 for a text-to-speech is a hell of a deal. Also, if you decide to learn new language in the future, please learn C++.
I don't know why it tripped over C++, but man, the voice completely tripped over C++. I'm gonna probably take a hiatus from learning new programming languages for a little while. Honestly. Yeah, I can't get the horizontal scroll bar to work. So horizontal works, but you can see like down here the scroll bar is like really, really tiny. The vertical scroll bar works good though. So how do I get this to work? The scroll bar is shy. Yeah, I'm not sure why the horizontal scroll bar is so small. I think it's because it's filling up like almost an infinite amount of space. Is what I think is happening. And so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to... I know I realized I just like suddenly switched context from Rustlings to this, but once I opened up the Notepad app, then I was like, I want to tinker with this some more. I think what I want to do... So let's remove this, remove the wrapping, and remove the container, so I don't think we need it. Okay, I know ice isn't used. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is rerun it, make sure it still works. Lurk away, Almani. Bob, I take medication. I don't have cataplexy, which is where you fall asleep randomly. I just get super sleepy all the time. Oh, sorry, that's my misunderstanding. That's my bad. Okay, so the scroll still works there. And the vertical scroll still works, which is good. All right, so I think I have an idea. So I think what's happening is that the horizontal space needs to be constrained. The scrollable horizontal space needs to be constrained. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to set the width of the scrollable based on the available width from the responsive element, and see if that works. Bob, super common misunderstanding. Yeah, that's my bad. Ryan, just got to work. Don't rush too much. You still got to be able to move when you're done. Yeah, 100%. 100%. We do not want to rush too much. I hope you have a good day at work, Ryan. I will be making my way there myself here in a bit. Okay, that still didn't work. So the scrolling horizontally works, but it doesn't... I wonder how this works on Notepad. The scroll bar doesn't show up. What does Notepad do? Okay, that's word wrap. Turn the word wrap off. See, it shows a scroll bar. So I want something like this. And I know there's a scroll bar there, but it's really, really, really small. It's like you can barely see it. It's so small. It's right there. Which tells me that the scroll bar container is like filling up like to infinity to the right, is what that's telling me. So I don't know why that's happening though. So we set the size to the available width. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. The thing is molluscule? Yeah, it really is. DigiArt Passion. I tried to install NeoVim on Windows 10 and my system hanged forever. Is this only for Mac? I use NeoVim on Windows 11. I've never used NeoVim on Windows 10. I would think NeoVim would work on Windows 10, but I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, I don't know. 100% certain. I would expect it to be just fine, but okay, so let me set a fix width. Let's do length. Oh, I didn't actually set the scrollable properly. I set... What did I set? I set the style of... Oh, no, I did. I did width. Width. What if I do length fixed size width? Is that the same thing as just passing size width? Nope, it's still the same problem. It's still the same problem. Yeah. The scroll works, but the scroll bar is just so tiny. So how do I constrain it? Okay, so what if I do like 100, like that. Cargo run. NeoVim does work on Windows 10. Okay, there you go. So I wonder why yours hung. That was weird. Okay, so that definitely changed the width. So this is my scrollable container. I still don't see a scroll bar though. Let's see, do I have something screwed up with the color scheme? Let's see. Background should be primary. Yep, that looks right. See, this is where I don't really understand. This is why I understand why people build desktop apps with web technologies, because I don't really understand the layout or the styling API of this GUI library. There's obviously a constrained limit there. I wonder... I think, if I recall correctly... Let's see, let's go up to our repositories. I'm pretty sure ICE has a bunch of examples in their repository, so let's... ICE.rs... GitHub.
Uncle Pee-wee is telling you to drink some coffee.
Thank you, sir. I will happily caffeinate. I would love to do this.
Uncle Pee-wee is reminding you to hydrate.
Okay, I'll drink my water. If you say so. Quattro. So you have sugar
Uncle
with.
Pee-wee is telling you to drink some coffee.
Okay, here we go. Let's do this. I sometimes I have sugar with coffee. Sometimes I have sugar and milk with coffee. Most of the time I drink it black, but one of my like really hard and fast nutritional rules is I try not
Uncle
to drink.
Pee-wee is reminding you to hydrate.
I try. I see what Uncle Pee-wee is doing. I try not to drink calories. That's one of my like hard and fast nutrition rules.
Uncle Pee-wee is telling you to drink some coffee.
Uncle Pee-wee has a lot of channel points. I'm gonna end up drinking all my coffee.
Uncle Pee-wee is telling you to drink some coffee.
I guess I have to honor this, right? I like don't mind it, goddamn. It's all gone. It's all gone, Uncle Pee-wee. The coffee has been drained. I love emotional Jared. Yeah, we could. I mean, I only have 15 more minutes. I have an Uber that's coming to pick me up at 7:35 to take me to the office. So I have I like have to hard stop at 7 in order to get ready. So I think they have an editor example in here. And I'm just going to steal this really quick. Maybe I should just clone the repo. Let's see. I want to fork it. Create fork. Because I kind of want to see how their editor behaves in their example to see if I'm doing something wrong or if you just can't do horizontal scrolling. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's just a limitation of the editor. Something about my coffee today gave me a massive headache. Really? That's awful, dude. I'm sorry. Headaches are the worst, man. I hate headaches. Oblivion. I'm making a Rust GUI with GTK4, and it's a pain. Maybe less so than iced, I reckon. Yeah, it's not even like it's just the unfamiliarity with the pixels and the layouts and the styling and how like coming from a web development background, it's so frustrating because like I know how I would do this if I was building a website, right? How would I accomplish this? How would I get horizontal scrolling, right, on a div or a container? And trying to figure out how to do that in this world is it feels like I'm flailing to figure it out, which doesn't feel fun all the time. Oddly enough, TUIs are such a nice middle ground between CLIs and game engines. TUIs are awesome, but they're kind of complex. Oh, are you saying TUIs are like game engines because there's a loop, like a rendering loop? GUI libraries feel awkward. They really do. Yeah, they really do. And maybe that's just a skill issue on my part because I haven't worked with them enough, you know? And so the more I do this type of development, the better it will get. Failed to refresh OAuth token. What? Say what? Did it rate limit me maybe? .NET index.cs. Come on. Come on. Huh, nope. There must just be, I probably should add some logging so I can figure out why that does that sometimes. Okay, let me go back to iced. Okay, cd editor, cargo run. I will say, I kind of... Oh, good morning, Rockin' Bread. Good to see you. I mean, TUIs are easy to use and can be made to be very intuitive. Game engines allow very powerful, creative things. GUIs are just neither. Yeah. I don't know, TUIs, I find TUIs to be difficult. Like, I've actually, like, in the process of building TUIs, like, I'm kind of finding them to be difficult. Like, more complex than what I thought they were. I will say though, I'm kind of falling in love with this idea of like local desktop development. Like I like the idea of being able to just like build some software, package it up, and be like, here you go. I'm kind of falling in love with that, where I don't have to worry about, oh, do I need a server to host this? Like I really like that idea of like, here's a single file. If you'd like to use the stuff I built, here's the file, run it on your machine. Which I guess you can kind of sort of do with Docker containers for web apps, but it's not really the same because, well, because someone has to know about Docker and have Docker available, right? I guess Go kind of lets you do that, or I guess you could accomplish the same kind of thing with a web application. You would just have to serve it like from the local machine, right? Like run it on a port and then have them go to their browser. Maybe I need to explore that model a little bit more in my web development projects. Like how do I create kind of a singly contained binary? Ooh, this is a nice editor. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so what happens if the text gets too... Oh, they have word wrap on. Oh, interesting. So this just doesn't do scrolling? Huh. I guess that's because they haven't put it in a scrollable, which I guess makes sense. I should add that feature. I should add word wrap to mine. So let's see. Can I change this so that it has a scrollable? Where is it? Here we go. I have 8 minutes. Can I figure this out in 8 minutes? I don't know. So where's the editor? Here's the text editor right here. So what happens if I throw this in a scrollable?
Uncle Pee-wee is reminding you to hydrate.
Thank you very much. Ratatouille for Rust is sweet. Bottom was written with it. Oh, I didn't know that. That's even cooler. Oh, the TUI that I built with Bubble Tea was really nice. I've been building a TUI, trying to build a TUI in C#, and that has not been as nice as using Bubble Tea. Uncle Pew, I'm used to doing front-end UI with websites, like my community site. I always found TUI a pain. Yeah, and I think that's probably some of the frustration I'm having with, like, styling the GUIs and laying out and styling the TUIs and the GUIs, or the desktop GUIs, is I just don't have the same level of familiarity or comfort. Let's see, looking at the ICE example for direction, scrollable direction both, 8 minutes is not a go. So are you saying it is possible? Did you find an example where it's possible? Question, how do you securely host a website on a home server? From a networking perspective, I'm guessing you would probably want to try to isolate it. But at the very minimal, you have to have a server in your house that's publicly accessible and routable, right? So you're going to have some port forwarding on probably your home router. At least that's how mine is set up. So I have a router. I don't have a static IP. I have a dynamic IP. And then my router port forwards specific ports to a server here in my home network. And then on that server, there's a reverse proxy that routes traffic accordingly. And then the IP is dynamically updated using a dynamic DNS service. But I think if you wanted to be really secure, you'd probably like segment that particular device off on your network. Cloudflare tunnels are really, really cool. Get rid of most of the reverse proxy and port forwarding effort. Oh, I've never looked at Cloudflare tunnels. I have to try that out. Proxy your traffic via DNS. Deploy Cloudflare tunnels. I've never used Cloudflare tunnels. So I'll have to look at that. I mean, I use Cloudflare as a proxy, but I've never used the Cloudflare tunnels feature. Hello, Inspire. Good to see you. I've been good. Yeah, I've been good. I've been trying to figure out how to make the to make my editor scrollable. And right now I'm not sure I know how to do it. This is not giving me, I feel like maybe Rust Analyzer is not attached. Because I feel like it should be complaining about the fact that I'm using scrollable. Let's see what happens when I run this. I knew it was going to yell at me. See? I knew it was going to yell at me. I knew that was going to happen. The monument, is that the default size? Is what the default size? Ah, damn. How much progress have we made with the editor? Oh, pretty good. Yeah, a pretty good amount. Here's what it looks like currently in its current form. Let's say this is what it looks like in its current form. So we can do like markdown highlighting. Good morning. Control Shift P. What else? We've got some styling stuff we're trying to work out. So it's a work in progress, but we can do the basics, you know. TypeScript function add num1 number num2 So We can do stuff like this, which is pretty cool. There is syntax highlighting support, but I think I have to save it. I think I have to save the file with a particular extension. Yeah, you can do that. What else? Let's see, save. Test MD. Oh, no, it's 7. Yeah, then once you set the file extension, you get highlighting, which is pretty nice. Yeah, it's coming along slowly but surely. We've been doing that. We've been doing the Notepad app, and then we've been doing Rustlings. We've kind of been bouncing back and forth between the two. And I've been working on the Notepad app in my free time as well, kind of off stream. Widget. I don't think I'm going to get scrolling working before I have to go. Quick question: how do you deal with criticism at work? I think when you get criticized at work, you have to disconnect the criticism from the person. You also need to disconnect the criticism from your own sense of self-worth, your own sense of self-worth or sense of self. And you need to just kind of try to objectively evaluate the criticism. Like, is it valid or is it invalid? Is it useful? Is it not useful? But I think that the key is not to have an emotional response to it. I think oftentimes having an emotional response to these things is what leads us into bad places. So maybe receive the criticism, take a deep breath, pause, right? Okay, they have the same issue. Yeah, they have the same issue. See how small the bar is down here? Yeah. Okay, so this must be a limitation of the editor itself. Okay. Interesting. I might try hacking around, see if I can't get around it somehow. All right, chat. I gotta go get ready. Code to Compass. Why don't you use tools like VS Code or something? I use VS Code. Yeah, I use VS Code. I just also use NeoVim. I like using NeoVim, but I use VS Code. I just used VS Code a lot yesterday. Yeah, I use whatever I feel like using, you know. Inspire. Yeah, I often find myself self-doubting and feeling like not doing anything anymore. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt yourself. I mean, criticism can be good, and criticism can be good. It can be bad. It can be disingenuous, right? So I think that's why you have to just kind of breathe, stop for a moment.
I like to say something.
Buy, sell.
Didn't get no snow where you live, Steven? Oh, yeah, we got snow here. Yeah, we got snow here, for sure. Code to Compass, great. Yeah, I think, I don't know, those questions, Code to Compass, is like, why don't you use XYZ thing? I don't know. They're not super helpful. It's like, why don't you use this? Why don't you use that? You know?
I like to say something.
Don't be latte lol.
I don't know why my voice to text is tripping over very seemingly small worlds. I already shoveled my snow, actually. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Sorry for asking. No, I mean, no, I wasn't trying to say you can't ask those things. I don't know if those questions are very useful because, like, well, why don't you use XYZ thing? Like, I don't know. I don't use it. You know, it's like, why don't you use Rider? Why don't you use Why don't you write Java? Why don't you write Lisp? Right? It's like all these questions about like why not? I don't know. Just cause. Inspire, yeah, makes sense. Got to stop taking shit so seriously. I mean, again, some criticism is a gift, and then some criticism is not, and you just have to evaluate it and try to disconnect yourself from it, right? And not allow it to impact you so much emotionally. Yeah, why don't you use Notepad? Yeah, get it. Yeah. No, it's not a knock on you, Code Compass. I just sometimes I feel like I never have a good answer for those questions other than like I just do things because I do them. Hey Steven, if you had to do a summary about learning Rust, how would it be? What are your thoughts about the language so far? It seems like a great language. It seems like a language that really makes you think clearly about what parts of your code are reading and writing to different pieces of data. It definitely has a big learning curve if you're not coming maybe from C or C++ like I am. I'm not coming from any of those lower level system level programming languages. So I feel like there's definitely a bigger learning curve to learning it than necessarily like learning Go. What else? The async await story seems particularly confusing and complex compared to other languages that I've worked with. That could be a skill issue on my part. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts so far. Bob Noel, also some people suck and you don't have to take their criticism. 100% to that. 100% to that. Code to Compass, because Notepad has no colors. It does not have no colors. It does not have any colors. My Notepad will have colors. See you, Manian. All right, guys, I gotta run. If you're new here and you want to come back and hang out on stream again, I stream every morning from 4:15 to 7 a.m. If you would like to hang out outside of stream, you can hang out in our Discord. I'll put those links. So schedule and link to the Discords in the chat. But I got to run. Otherwise, I'm going to miss my ride to the office. Bye, guys. Bye.
Kelsey
See y'all.
Freeborn 4063 says bye.
See you guys.